When we normally sit down to do one of these deep dives, we're usually looking for a very specific kind of book.
Right, something about optimization, how to be more productive.
Exactly. We want to know how to work just a little bit harder or, maybe a little smarter, how to squeeze that extra 5% out of a calendar that, let's be honest, is already bursting.
Well, the assumption is always that the ladder is worth climbing. We just want to climb it faster.
That's it. That is the
Oh,
assumption.
yeah?
But today is different. We're looking at a stack of material from a book that doesn't just suggest climbing the ladder faster. It suggests picking up the ladder, walking it over to the window, and just throwing it out onto the street.
A perfect description.
We are doing a deep dive into the 4-Hour Workweek by Timothy Ferriss. And I have to say, going through this stuff, it was a wild ride. It feels less like a business book and more like a manifesto.
It absolutely is a manifesto, and I think our mission today is to help you, the listener, look past that title. Because 4-Hour Workweek, it sounds like a scam, right?
It totally does. It sounds like a late-night infomercial.
Exactly. But when you really get into the text, you realize it's not about being lazy. It's actually this really rigorous, almost philosophical argument for something he calls lifestyle design.
Lifestyle design. That's the phrase, isn't it? The core idea isn't just work less. It's about something much more fundamental. It's about separating your income from your time.
Right. It challenges that belief we all grew up with, the one that says you have to grind away 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, for 40 years.
Oh, so you can hopefully retire at 65 and then finally start living your life.
Ferriss has a great name for that path. He calls it the deferred life plan. And in this book, that's the villain, this idea that you sacrifice your best years, your most energetic, healthiest years, for a payoff that might never even come.
It's a huge gamble when you think about it. You're betting your whole life that you'll be healthy and able to cash out at the very end.
Precisely. So the alternative he proposes is what he calls the new rich, the NR. And this is a really crucial definition to start with because it completely reframes what success even means.
Okay, so the new rich aren't the people with the most money in the bank.
Not necessarily. They aren't the billionaires sleeping under their desks. The new rich are the people who have abandoned that deferred plan. They create these luxury lifestyles right now, in the present.
And they do it with two key currencies, time and mobility.
Exactly. Time and mobility. And this is where the math gets really, really interesting. He breaks down the difference between absolute income and relative income.
Right, because we're all trained to just look at that annual salary. If I ask you who's richer, the person making 100 grand or the person making 50 grand, the answer seems obvious.
In the old model, the deferred life plan, the $100,000 person is the winner. That's absolute income. It's just a number.
But he says that's a flawed way to measure wealth.
A deeply flawed way. He introduces relative income, which looks at what you make per hour of work. And just as importantly, the freedom attached to each dollar.
Let's use the example from the text because it really makes it clear. You've got Jane Doe. She makes $100,000 a year.
Sounds great on paper.
But she's, say, an investment banker working 80 hours a week. She's chained to her desk. She's burnt out, answering emails at midnight.
Right. She has zero control. She buys expensive things because she has no time to actually enjoy life.
Okay, then you've got John Doe. John only makes $50,000 a year, half of what Jane makes. But he's set up an online business or something, and he only works 10 hours a week.
So let's do that math. In absolute terms, Jane is richer. But in relative terms, John making 50 grand for 10 hours a week is effectively making $100 an hour.
And Jane, at 80 hours a week for her 100 grand, she's making about $25 an hour.
So John is 4 times richer than Jane.
Wow. When you frame it like that, it's a huge difference.
And that's before you even get to what he calls the freedom multiplier. This idea that your money is worth more depending on the control you have over the 4 W's.
The 4 W's.
What you do, when you do it, where you do it, and with whom you do it.
Ah, okay. So if John can live in Thailand for $300 a month, his 50 grand suddenly feels like 200 grand in New York.
Exactly. And Jane has to live in New York, a high-cost city. She has no choice. Her freedom multiplier is basically 0. His is through the roof.
It completely changes the definition of wealthy. So how do you get there? How do you become one of the new rich? The book is structured around this acronym, right? DEAL.
DEAL. That's a roadmap. Definition, elimination, automation, and liberation. Although he gives a really important warning here. If you're an employee right now...
You can't just follow it in that order.
No, you'll get fired. You have to swap it to delay.
DL. Okay, so liberation comes before automation. Why?
Think about it. If you're in an office and you use these techniques to get your work done in 2 hours instead of 8, what happens?
Your boss walks by, sees you watching YouTube, and either fires you or, best case, just dumps a mountain of more work on your desk.
Exactly. You become a victim of your own efficiency. So you have to liberate yourself first. Get that remote work agreement. Get out of the office before you automate. That way, no one sees how little you're working. They just see the results.
That is a brilliant, crucial tip. Okay, let's start at the beginning then. D for definition. This isn't just about defining your goals. It's about redefining the entire game.
And nothing illustrates this better than the kickboxing story.
Oh, this was my favorite part of the whole thing. It just perfectly captures the mindset. So for anyone listening who hasn't heard this, Ferriss decides to enter the Sanshu National Kickboxing Championship.
With basically no real training, he has, 4 weeks to prepare?
4 weeks, and he knows he can't outfight the pros. He can't make up a decade of training in a month. So what does he do?
He doesn't try to work harder. He tries to work smarter. He reads the rule book.
He reads the rule book. I love it. He just sits down and looks for loopholes. And he finds a couple of huge ones. First, the weigh-ins are the day before the fight.
Which is a massive technicality. He uses dehydration techniques, drops almost 30 pounds of water weight to make the 165-pound weight class.
But by fight time, 24 hours later, he's hyperhydrated all the way back up to 193 pounds.
So he's essentially fighting guys who are 3 weight classes smaller than him. He's a giant in the ring.
But that was just the physical hack. The tactical one was even better. He finds this one weird rule in the scoring.
The pushing rule.
The pushing rule. If you can push your opponent off the raised platform 3 times in a round, you win the round by default. It doesn't matter if they punched you in the face 50 times.
So he didn't even bother learning complex kickboxing combinations. He just practiced pushing people.
And he won.
Yep.
He won the national title, not by being the best fighter, but by being the best deal maker. He found a way to win that was uncommon, but totally within the rules.
And that's the core of definition. We assume the rules are work 9 to 5, wait your turn. But those are just defaults. They aren't laws of physics. They're negotiable.
But trying to negotiate them, trying to do something that unreasonable is, well, it's scary. It goes against everything we're taught.
Which brings us to the real barrier. It's not ability, it's not technology, it's fear.
And this is where he introduces fear setting, which is the opposite of goal setting.
We all know goal setting. But it's useless if you're paralyzed by all the what-ifs. So instead of defining what you want, you define the nightmare. You write down in detail the absolute worst-case scenario.
So if you're thinking of quitting your job to travel, you don't just say, I'm scared. You write down, okay, my business fails, I run out of money, I have to move back in with my parents and sleep in my childhood bedroom.
My friends will laugh at me. I'll have to get a job as a bartender. You make it as vivid as possible.
And when Ferriss did this for himself, he had this big realization, didn't he?
A huge one. He looked at his nightmare list and thought, okay, on a scale of 1 to 10 of permanent life impact, this is a 3, maybe a 4.
It's temporary. He could recover. He wouldn't be ruined forever.
Right. But then he looked at the upside, the potential for a permanent positive life change. That was a 9 or a 10.
So he was risking a temporary 3 for a permanent 10. It's an easy choice when you see the math.
And it exposes how we often use fake optimism to mask fear. We stay in a bad job thinking, oh, it'll get better. That's not optimism. That's fear of the unknown. Fear setting pulls the mask off.
And to build that muscle, to act despite the fear, he suggests these comfort challenges, little exercises in public awkwardness.
They are excruciating just to read about.
Yeah.
Like eye gazing, just staring into a stranger's eyes until they break contact.
So awkward. It violates every social rule.
Or asking strangers for their phone number. Not to get a date, but just to get used to rejection, to realize that someone saying no doesn't actually hurt you.
It builds up a callus against social disapproval. So once you've redefined the game and faced your fear, you get to elimination.
And this is where we just blow up the whole idea of time management, because time management is usually about fitting more into your day.
And he says that's the wrong goal entirely. It's about effectiveness versus efficiency.
Yes, this is such a critical distinction. Efficiency is doing a task right. Effectiveness is doing the right task.
So you could be the world's most efficient email checker, inbox 0 every day.
But if checking email isn't actually moving you closer to your goals, you are effectively doing nothing. You're just spinning your wheels in a very organized way.
There's a great quote in the text. Doing something unimportant well does not make it important. Yeah, that one hit me pretty hard.
It hits everybody hard because we all confuse activity with productivity. And to fix this, he uses 2 famous principles. Pareto's law and Parkinson's law.
Pareto's law, the 80-20 rule.
Yeah.
Started with peas in a garden. Wow.
Exactly. Vilfredo Pareto noticed 80% of his peas came from 20% of his pods, and it applies everywhere. 80% of your results come from 20% of your efforts.
And Ferriss applied this to his own business in a really radical way.
He analyzed his customers and found that just 5 of them brought in 95% of his revenue. Meanwhile, the other 120 customers were causing all the problems.
They were the ones complaining, asking for refunds, eating up all his time.
So he fired them.
He fired his customers. I mean, that goes against every business book ever written.
He just cut them loose. He focused only on the high-yield, low-maintenance clients. And what happened?
His hours plummeted from 80 a week down to 15.
And his income doubled because he could give his best customers better service. That is the essence of elimination. You stop doing the things that don't matter.
And then you combine that with Parkinson's law,
Which is the idea that a task will expand to fill the time you give it.
if you have a week to write a report, it takes a week. If you have 24 hours.
You get it done in 24 hours, and it will probably be better because you're forced to focus only on what's important. So you use 80-20 to pick the critical tasks, and then you use Parkinson's law to do them fast by setting crazy short deadlines.
But to do that, you have to get rid of distractions, which leads to the low information diet. This is a tough one for people today.
It's radical. He suggests no newspapers and checking email only once a week.
Once a week, I get anxiety if I don't check it every 10 minutes. How is that even functional?
Well, the principle is moving from just-in-case information to just-in-time. We consume so much media just in case it's important. He says just go find the information when you actually need it for a task. The rest is just noise.
Mental clutter.
Exactly. But you can't get rid of that clutter if people are constantly interrupting you. So he has these very specific office tactics.
Like the email autoresponder script.
The one that says, I am checking email twice a day at 12:00 p.m. and 4:00 p.m. If this is an emergency, please call.
That feels so aggressive. Wouldn't my boss get mad?
They might at first, but you're training them. If you respond instantly, you train people to expect instant responses. If you batch your replies, you train them to solve their own problems. Most emergencies aren't.
And if you need to negotiate something like this with a boss, you use the puppy dog close.
It's a classic sales tactic. You don't ask someone to buy a dog. You ask them to take the puppy home for the weekend. No commitment.
Because you know they'll fall in love and never bring it back.
Right. So you don't say, I'm working from home forever. You say, let's just try it for 2 days. As a trial. If productivity drops, we go right back to the old way. You make it reversible.
So we've defined the new game. We've eliminated the noise. Now we get to the really fun part. A for automation.
This is where you go from being the person running the train to the person who owns the tracks. The goal is to replace yourself.
And a big part of this is geo-arbitrage.
It's a simple concept. You earn money in a strong currency, like US dollars, and you spend it in a weaker currency by hiring virtual assistants or VAs from places like India or the Philippines.
But the text has a huge warning here. Eliminate before you delegate.
Oh, this is so important. Automation applied to an inefficient operation will magnify the inefficiency. Don't hire a VA to do a stupid task. Get rid of the stupid task first.
Streamline the process, then hand it off.
Exactly. Once you do that, though, the things you can outsource are just mind-boggling. The case study with the writer A.J. Jacobs is amazing.
Oh, this was hilarious. He decided to outsource his entire life.
He had a business VA and a personal VA. The business one did research, but the personal one, Asha, she handled arguments with his wife.
I can't believe that worked. He had her send an apology e-card to his wife for him.
And his wife thought it was efficient and sweet. But it gets weirder. He even outsourced his worry. He was stressed about a deal, so he told his VA to worry about it for him.
How does that even work?
She just emailed back and said, I will worry about this, do not worry. And he said he actually felt relieved. He offloaded the mental burden.
It sounds absurd, but it makes a point. You can delegate almost anything to free up your own mental space. If your time is worth $100 an hour, you should not be spending an hour on the phone arguing with your cable company.
That's a $100 loss. Pay a VA $10 to do it for you.
Okay, so you've automated everything. You have income flowing in without you. What's next? L for liberation.
This is the payoff. This is escaping the 9-to-5 for good. And this is where he introduces the idea of mini retirements.
Instead of one big retirement at the end of your life, you take them all along the way.
Exactly. You don't just take a 1-week vacation. You relocate to Argentina or Thailand for 3 to 6 months at a time. You actually live there.
And it's often cheaper than living at home because of that geo-arbitrage we talked about. You're renting an apartment, not staying in a hotel.
Right. It's actually cheaper to live a life of perpetual travel than it is to live in a major Western city. But people always ask, how could I ever afford that? Which brings us to dreamlining.
This is his version of goal setting, but with math.
Very specific math. You list out everything you want to have, be, and do in the next 6 to 12 months. Then you put a monthly price tag on each item.
This gives you your TMI, your target monthly income.
And the surprising thing is, that number is usually much, much lower than people think. The dream of having an Aston Martin and a personal assistant.
Sounds like you need to be a millionaire.
But when you break it down, you lease the car, you hire the VA by the hour. The actual monthly cash flow you need isn't millions. It might just be an extra $4,000 or $5,000 a month.
You don't need $1 million in the bank. You just need the cash flow that you think $1 million provides.
That is the fundamental insight. But there is a dark side to all this freedom. He calls it the void.
And this is something nobody talks about, the fat man in the red BMW syndrome.
It's the person who achieves the dream. They quit the job, they have the passive income, the noise of work stops, and they are met with silence.
And they panic. They get what he calls adult onset ADD.
They feel bored, irrelevant. They wonder, is this all there is? He warns that boredom is the real enemy, not failure. When you remove the busy work that has defined you for decades, you have to actually face yourself.
So what's the solution? How do you fill that void?
Continuous learning and service, you have to replace the vague idea of happiness with excitement. Find something that excites you. Learn a language, master a skill, volunteer for a cause you believe in.
If you don't fill the void with something meaningful, you'll just fill it with more busy work.
Or worse.
Yeah.
It's fascinating that the book really ends on this psychological warning, because freedom requires more self-discipline than a 9-to-5 ever will.
So let's bring it all together. The whole philosophy, DEAL, it's not about being lazy.
Not at all. It's about being unreasonable with society's defaults. It's about shifting your focus from absolute income to relative income, from just in case to just in time.
And realizing that the biggest risk isn't trying this and failing.
No. The biggest risk is the cost of doing nothing. The risk is spending 40 years in what he calls a tolerably boring existence. You can't get that time back.
Tolerably boring. That is the perfect description of the trap, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's not bad enough to force you to leave, but not good enough to make you happy.
It's a danger zone.
There's one final thought from the source material that I want to leave everyone with. It's a hypothetical that it really crystallizes the whole point.
The heart attack scenario.
Yeah. Imagine you had a heart attack today.
Yeah.
Your doctor says you'll be fine, but you absolutely have to limit your work to 2 hours a day, or maybe even just 2 hours a week. Any more, and that's it.
What would you do? What would you immediately cut? What tasks would you realize are completely unimportant?
And the book's point is, this isn't just a hypothetical, it's a prescription. Why are you waiting for the heart attack to force you to do what you already know you should do?
Are you being productive or are you just being active?
That's the question to ask yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, that's our deep dive into the 4-Hour Workweek. We will catch you on the next one.